Hi everybody, welcome to my channel. My name is Jody Hand. I go by Mrs. Hand Painted on Instagram. Today I'm going to be showing you how I painted a watercolor peach. I'm starting out by sketching my peach design onto my paper, and I'm using Nujabi handmade paper that I purchased from Jerry's Artarama. It's fairly inexpensive. This is 100% cotton paper and it's handmade in India, I believe. Um, so I'm just using a Prismacolor watercolor pencil that I just bought pretty cheaply at Target, just to do a very light sketch of my peach. And I'm using a reference photo that I will link in the comments that I found on Home Depot's website from peach trees that they're selling. So that's what I used for my reference photo, and I'll share that with you so that you can sketch your own. And I just used an orange watercolor pencil and a green watercolor pencil, and then a brown watercolor pencil for the branches that I'll be drawing here in a minute.
She's waiting for love to be realized. I'll send her my heart covered as a gift and hope that you'll take it into her side. La 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 la.
Okay, so now I'm going to start painting on this, and I want to do some kind of a background on this so it's not just on stark white paper. And I'm going to go ahead and use my Princeton Velvetouch brushes today, and I'll be using this 1/2-inch wash brush to wet my paper down with some clean water. And I'm just going around my design that I drew. I'm just wanting to do the background behind the branches, leaves, and the peach. And I'm just putting some clean water down just to make this a little bit wet so that my color will carry. And the colors on my palette were just left over, so I am going to be using that red and the green, but the other colors were from a previous painting of a dragonfly that I did. So I'm just going to dab in some of the sap green into those wet areas, and then I'll wet my brush some more and kind of just spread that color around really loosely. I just want this to be kind of a blurry looking background.
Over the hills and far from home, she's waiting for love to be realized. I'll send her my heart covered as a gift and hope that you'll take it into her side. La 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 la.
All right, so I kind of just have that green in there loosely now. I'm gonna go ahead and dry this so that I don't have any bleeding into my background when I start on the main part of my peach. Just using a heat tool I have from Ranger ink that I use for card making and scrapbooking. All right, so now that I have that background dry, I'm going to put some clean water on the main part of the fruit. I'm going to go around that with clean water, and then I'm going to put my color into that wet. And I am using Daniel Smith watercolors for this. The color I did on the background there was the sap green, and I'm going to be first starting out with some yellow ochre. I think that's a nice undertone for this peach. It's just going to put some yellow ochre into that wet area that I just went over. I just want a very, very light wash of this color. I don't want it to be very dark. So I am going to be going over this in some red to bring in that deep color that's in the center. And here I'm using Pyrrol Scarlet for my red color. And I'm going to focus on that center. So in my reference photo, it had a deeper red color along the one side. And I will just spread this around with my brush, get a little more water, and get that evenly spread out. Do want to add just a few little highlight areas along the edge so I can blend that in with the yellow. I'm just going around my leaves here because I don't want that to go there. All right, I'm going to go ahead and blend this in then. It's a little streaky. And the bottom of the peach had just a darker area along the bottom tip. So I'm just using a little bit of burnt umber to darken that. And then add just a little bit more in the center there where it was darkest. Just going to blend that in. What I do like about this particular paper is just has a very nice texture. It's a handmade paper, so it does give you a lot of neat textures, the way that the fibers absorb the paper. And sometimes you get a very, very stained fiber and you end up with this little bit of a, I don't know how to explain it exactly, a little bit of a speckled effect. So that's where you're seeing some of those little flecks that you're getting in the middle of my painting here. It's just the handmade paper absorbing the color differently. And I'm going to go ahead and dry that again before I start on my leaves. Okay, and before I move on, I just wanted to add a little bit more, another layer on the dark, and that brown on the bottom, the burnt umber, and just blend that in a little bit more. And then adding just a little bit more of the scarlet, just to deepen that center part of the peach. And blending that in again. All right, so I'm just adding a little bit of hooker's green in here as well for the leaves, just to get a little bit brighter. The sap green is a bit more on the muted side, and the picture did have very bright leaves, so I just wanted to mix that in a little bit. Just putting that small little leaf that was in the photo and starting with the leaf that went across the front of the peach. And to do the veining details on these leaves, what I like to do is turn my paintbrush around and use the bottom edge of the handle to kind of press into my paper. As you can see right here, I'm just pressing into that, and then I can go back over that with another layer of paint, and it will then absorb more paint in that area and give me that darker line so that I don't have to go back in with a detail brush later and try to paint those lines in. Here, I thought that was just a little bit too bright, so then I did go and get some more of the sap green and kind of put a layer over top of this. Just wanted to brighten it up, but it was just a little bit too bright green for my liking. And I'm going to go ahead and finish out the other leaves on the other side of the peach here.
She's waiting for love to be realized. I'll send her the hardcover as a gift, and hope that you take it into her side.
Right, now that I've got those leaves finished, I can go ahead and work on my branches. And there was a bit of a green undertone on those branches, so I'm just doing a very light line on the edge of the branches and try not to be too perfectly straight with these because they are knobby and bumpy and I want them to look more natural. And then I'm using my burnt umber to go in and do the rest of the branch. And then I will be dropping in some other color here just to give some variation.
Over the hills and far from mine, she's waiting for love to be realized. I'll send her the hardcover as a gift, and hope that you'll take it into her side.
Right, now that I have a nice wash of my burnt umber across there, I want to add some other tints in there just to make this a little more variation. I'm going to use a little bit of the neutral tint to give it some deep tones there, just kind of adding that into the wet paint and letting that blend in. Just kind of adding in some more little bumpy textures along the branch there. And I'll add some yellow ochre as well, just to give it a little color variation. I don't have very many browns in my palette, so I need to kind of mix together some other colors to give myself some tone variations. And I'll add just a little bit more of the green. I need to widen that one branch there a little bit. And I just want to do some variations on my background here as well. So I'm just adding in some of the burnt umber and just blending that into the background, getting my brush wet. Nice thing about this particular paper as well is that it is 300 pounds, so it's quite heavy and it can be worked quite a bit. But due to the natural fibers and the handmade paper like this, it does sometimes get a little pilled up if you rub it too hard. So you do need to be careful of that if you use this paper. And just filling in some of those little white areas that it didn't get my initial wash over. And just adding in some of the burnt umber around just to give it some color variation and the illusion of some shadows in the background. And just adding some little touch-ups around my edges of my branches just to blend in some of those white areas. And I think I'm pretty satisfied with the way that looks, so I'm going to go ahead and sign my painting. There's my peach. Thanks for watching.